We are here, of course, to talk about how businesses are building resilience, and we're taking your questions right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So please ask away. This is Food Week. We're talking to some incredible chefs and restaurateurs all this week about some of the amazing things that they're doing. And before I'm joined by Christina Tosi of Milk Bar, who is this direction. Yes, I'm pointing right in the right direction. I just want to thank Comcast Business for supporting NPR and How I Built This during a time when we really need that support. Comcast Business is prepared for times like these, powered by the nation's largest gig speed network to help give you speed, reliability, security, and the tools to manage your business from any device, anywhere, and a team of experts 24/7. For more, go to comcastbusiness.com. We couldn't do these shows without their support, so thank you, Comcast Business. Okay, all this week, we're talking food and restaurants and how they're coping with the crisis. And I am super excited to have Christina Tosi, founder of Milk Bar, with me, the dessert and bakery shop's probably most famous for Milk Bar pie and cornflake cookies and compost cookies. And if you want to hear more about how Christina built Milk Bar, you should definitely check out her episode of How I Built This from last year. It is so good. It's so funny. And a reminder, we are taking your questions on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So please ask any questions you have for Christina Tosi of Milk Bar. Christina, welcome. It's so great to see you.
I know. It's good to see you coast to coast, right? I'm on East Coast.
I know. Are you at home in your apartment in New York City right now?
Yeah, I'm at home in Manhattan. I was just over at our New York City commissary in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, checking on the team, saying hi, giving some posy vibes.
Yeah.
Taking some flour from our from our large stock of flour and sugar. And I'm back home for a few minutes with you.
So just give me a sense. I mean, are you you're in Manhattan? Are you still hearing ambulance sirens all the time? What's the vibe like for you when you just go outside?
The vibe is strange. It's strange. There's not a lot of people around, which for New York City is incredibly jarring in a way. There's definitely a heft in the air. There's ambulance sirens. There's not a lot of people. And at 7 p.m. every night for 2 minutes straight, people cheer on doctors and nurses and people that are on the front lines as healthcare professionals. So there's this really interesting juxtaposition of this sort of overwhelming cloud of solitariness that comes with sort of a heft and a weight and a strangeness and perhaps a feeling of being scared. And then for 2 minutes at 7 p.m., you're reminded that the only way around this is through it, and we're going to get through it together. And that's our reality right now.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are reading that poem, that Robert Frost poem right now. The only way through is basically through it. I know that all of your locations, I think about 20 across the country and in Toronto and Canada, are closed. How many of your employees have been affected, and how many have you been able to keep on?
About half of our team has been, we've all been affected, but from a work standpoint, pretty early on, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we got to a place where we had to furlough half of our team.
Wow.
We started this sort of decision tree probably 2 months ago. Of our stores, 5 remain open for delivery and pickup in New York City, in Boston, and in Los Angeles. And we sort of created some parameters around that decision making. And as we sort of got a little bit deeper into COVID-19, we started with the decision-making tree in terms of our team members by saying, who's not feeling well, who just in general is not comfortable coming to work. And so we allowed the self-selection process to help guide and dictate. And then, of course, just around some of the government decisions around unemployment, parameters around sick pay, and so on and so forth. We always try to be super thoughtful and ahead of the curve, and we remained ahead of the curve. But for us, first and foremost, it's almost like we are a business, but we don't think about ourselves as a business first. We think about our team first and foremost, and ask them who's comfortable working, who needs to come in, whose comfort and safety and livelihood actually depends on a paycheck and benefits and so on and so on. And so that's been helpful, at least in setting the tone, but we've most certainly had to make a lot of really difficult decisions. We've had to be really smart about pivoting. Once we got through the team element of it, then we said, okay, now let's look at this as a business, and have tried to make the most of the situation.
So you mentioned the commissary. This is basically your big production facility in Williamsburg in Brooklyn. First of all, that's operating, right? There are people baking cookies and cakes and pies there every day.
Yeah, there are. What we've seen in the pivot of how we, just as people in the world, are learning new behaviors in our stay-at-home or shelter-in-place mandates from our, respective states. What we are finding is perhaps where we don't have the same opportunity in storefront or delivery, we are seeing such an incredible feat on e-com that is people saying, like, healthcare professionals are like, okay, if you can't get me more ventilators, can you bring me some cookies? People that are, that can't be with loved ones or friends on their birthdays, on graduations, in these meaningful moments that are still happening because we're still living life. In businesses whose entire teams are working from home, and they just want to send something, a tin of cookies, to say, thank you. Like, thank you for showing up no matter how hard it is and no matter what else it is that you're juggling in your life, whether it's childcare or roommates or what have you. What we're seeing is that as long as our team is comfortable showing up and turning on the ovens, our mentality and our mission at Milk Bar is to show up for people.
Yeah.
And it starts with showing up for one another, but we don't take for granted this incredible opportunity to show up for people that are going through their own individual realities of the now. And so right now our Williamsburg kitchen is baking, and our LA kitchen is baking, and we're trying to be really thoughtful about that. And we continue to realize and understand and embrace, like, the simplicity, but the power of it. There's a lot of levity to it.
And how are you? The kitchens in LA and Williamsburg in Brooklyn can't operate in the same way they normally do. Like, right? People have to be spaced apart. And we were talking to Daniel Hume about this at 11 Madison Park. How are you doing that? Or are you basically keeping people far apart? Are they wearing masks and things like that?
So they're spaced apart. The way that we typically produced in our commissaries anyways is usually with, like, larger pieces of equipment. So there was already a lot of natural space.
Yeah.
We already always wear gloves in all of our, kitchens and stores. The face masks have been a new normal for us. And I kind of went through this wave of, like, how do we show up for our team? And my mom and my aunt, who, like, make all of our headscarves, pivoted a few weeks back, and they were like, we're making face masks. And I said, hey, if we get you every single person's name and their color preference or what have you, will you make us face masks? Because I still want people to feel who we are is still the same. How we might be feeling is different, but so they all have, like, these really quirky homemade face masks. They sent them all, like, care packages to the kitchen. Like, how do we show up, and how do we make this is real, but how do we pivot it, and how do we bring lightness to it? And so it's face and it's gloves and hairnets, which is not really different for us, but it's face masks, and it's like reading people's eyes, honestly, because you're saying, like, oh my gosh, hey Gandhi, what's up? How are you? I'm so proud of you. Like, you really have to do it with your eyes or with your gestures. And we're just trying to make the most of kind of like a rainy day, which is kind of how my mom raised me to think about the trying times that are going to happen in life.
Yeah, and you talked about it on the podcast that we did back in October of 2019. It was such a cool story, and you guys, you got to hear it. If you haven't heard it, go listen to that episode. Christina, we're getting a lot of questions from Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And if you want to ask questions and you're watching, you have questions for Christina, please ask away. This is from Jessica Van Dope de Jesus. She asks, presumably, for a lot of small business owners, there are a lot of emotional challenges in like furloughing employees, right? I mean, this is emotionally painful for the employees and also for the employer. Pretty much everyone who works for you. And she asks, how are you dealing with your own mental health? Just going through the agonizing process of doing all those things.
Yeah. It's heavy and it's real. And I have learned that I've learned enough about my mental health because, by the way, when you choose working in a kitchen as a profession, it really does test your mental health. It tests everything you know about yourself. And I have learned for myself right now that I need alone time. I need time. I call it to mourn. And I guess I call it to mourn because I have lost friends over the last few weeks, one due to COVID and one because she didn't have access to healthcare because she needed a respirator and she didn't have COVID and she wasn't in a good state. And so part of my alone time has been to mourn the loss of life of people I know and to mourn the loss of life of people I don't know and to mourn the personal realities of what it feels like when you have to call someone on the phone because you can't even sit in a room with them to tell them. Yeah. And I have found that furloughing an employee is hard. I try to always find the silver lining of it. And what I say to myself is I have to make the hard decisions right now to guarantee the realities of the business, right? If I don't do it now, then I can't guarantee anyone a job that they're passionate about and a company that stands for something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come without heft. And my personal reality is I go on really long walks and I kind of segment them out. And they're like my morning MOURN morning walks. And sometimes they come with tears and sometimes they come with like a heaviness. And all of those things just remind me that I'm a real person that has real feelings and that feels really connected, that my commitment to my team still remains the same, despite the fact that the decision might look or feel otherwise for someone in the moment. It's being really honest with yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of people are asking this question, which is, hey, businesses or restaurants or bakeries like yours, okay, you're going to shut down you're going to shut down most of these locations for a long time. But why, couldn't you just reconstitute it in 7 or 8 months if you have to shut them down? Like, is it that easy, or is it actually a lot more complicated than just like reconstituting it and bringing everybody back and everything's back to normal?
I think so realities up front are that this more or less happened overnight. And so you are dealing with product, perishable product. For those of us that are in the food and beverage industry, we bang our heads against the wall, even outside of COVID-19, to be like, why did I get in the business of selling things that are the most perishable, finicky things? Right. And so you're dealing with that. So first you have to say, I have all this stuff. What am I going to do with it? You have all these team members whose livelihood depends on it. And you don't know what kind of government support you can depend on at the beginning. You have the realities of your financials where you have accounts payables and accounts receivables. And so you want to be the best possible business person in holding true to the people that you owe money to. And those are realities. Your cash flow isn't coming in. Food and business operations, by and large, operate on really thin margins. So there's not, if you don't have cash coming in, however many days a week or shifts that you're open, that's a reality. And I think the kicker of it from my perspective is that what we don't have yet is the reality of our occupancy line item on the financials, or said differently, we don't know what we are responsible for from a lease standpoint. So keep in mind that we're paying anything from like $2,500 a month to $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 a month on rent. And though maybe we can defer those payments at this point in time, many of us don't know, are we spending for all of them? Can we negotiate? Are we getting kicked out? There's guarantees within a lease that say that they can come after your bigger business, or maybe even, in my case, your personal finances. And that really is the kicker of, where are you going to come up with 7 or 8 months? Once you solve all the other problems, where are you going to come up with 7 or 8 months in this scenario of rent? And if you can even defer it beyond the 7 or 8 months, think about how long it's going to take
to come back.
Bring that back just to pay your landlord, let alone your taxes, your insurance payments, and a lot of other things. So, it's the sexy part of the joyful nature.
So, I mean, can you give us a sense, like, is your, given the fact that most of your stores are closed and people can't really go up there except for, pickup, and obviously even pickup traffic is going to be vastly reduced. Is your revenue just dramatically down? I mean, I would imagine it is.
Yeah, it's in a scary place. The storefronts, to your point, like, it's 5 of 18, 20. That's not a lot, and they're doing a percentage of what they were doing. I think this is where we do the really good work, and I'm grateful for being. I opened Milk Bar in 2008 in the middle of a recession. We barricaded down during Hurricane Sandy. Obviously, nothing has been anywhere near as intense as this, but we know how to hunker down. We know how to get nimble. We know how to do a lot with a little. And this is where we dig in and say, where are the opportunities online? They're totally different margins. So even where we can earn back some of what we've lost in stores, no matter how far we go online, our margin structure is still really in a tricky place. Our silver lining is that we have been planning this. We talked about this in the fall of last year. When we taped, we just launched into Whole Foods and next week on Amazon. Our 4 grocery store cookies. Hold on, I have one here. Snack time.
Can you send that to me? Can you just hand that to me? I'm gonna grab that from you. Thanks.
So, I mean, the grocery stores are a tricky place to be right now too. But I'm always thinking in my head, how do I stay multiple steps ahead? I was certainly not thinking that this is where the business would be, but in the spirit of how do we show up in people's lives, I always try and be thoughtful about being super open-minded. And so I'm grateful for some of the small wins despite the really big hits. And the business is totally different right now. I have a board meeting next week, and we're in the middle of pulling together how we're going to present what we're going to present. And I love having to do it. And the reality is, we're showing these numbers, and it's about what we think the business will look like towards the end of the year and what it'll look like in 2021. The hilarity of it is, this has always been true, but for some reason it feels so much more true now than ever, is we have no control. Everything is breakable. We have no idea. And that's not because we're not intelligent, well-researched, data-driven humans that run a business. It's because we have no control over it, and don't know how it will all change. And we don't know how long it will take to get back. And we don't know, just even as if we take ourselves out of the business of running Milk Bar, just as consumers, right? As people in the world, what will make us feel safe? What will make us feel indulgent? What will make us feel joyful? And just what will our new norms be? And how much will they change in 6 months to 12 months to 18 months? And so it is a fun but scary game to play. And that's reality. And so you have to just embrace it, because you can't control it and you can't get stuck in it. And there's no rear view mirroring, U-turn, look back. There's only forward. And to what we said earlier, in Frost terms, it's it's through it. That's it. So let's just take one step forward every day.
You just totally energized me. I'm gonna run out of this. I'm gonna run out of the studio and just jump up and down in
But
the
it's like,
California.
let's rise, right? Like this
Yeah,
is, we talk about like,
totally.
let's rise to the occasion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard, but I mean, some of the things that you're doing, I mean, they're not direct to consumer sales and trying to get into Whole Foods now. I mean, this launch in Whole Foods was planned for months and months. We talked about it back in October. You're doing it anyway, and I mean, it sounds like, it's not going to make up for the general loss of store traffic, but you're sort of thinking 2 years down the road, and that some of the things you're doing now are building a foundation for when things are going to start to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting a bunch of questions from people on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And this is actually to that point, this idea of kind of just pivoting and thinking creatively. This is from Tori Parsons. She writes a baking club. So for those of you who don't know, Christina does a daily baking club, I think at 2 p.m. Eastern on Instagram. It's so fun. And you don't really, I mean, most of the things you probably have in your house, although flour's a bit tricky to get a hold of, but it's really fun. It's amazing to watch. Tori says it's been such an important part of her day, helping her stay connected with her family, her friends, helping her to adjust to the new normal. So she says, thank you. How did you decide to just start that?
When we started closing stores and we started to realize let's make videos and let's put them out. People are going to be at home and baking and cooking and curious more than ever about food. So let's show up for them. And we filmed all this stuff. And after a day of it and seeing the cuts, I was just like, man, I feel like it's only halfway there. Like, I think we can do better, but in a really funny way. Better means more human, and better means less produced, and better means making a commitment to something, to people, to doing something every day, because I think our reality is so shattered. And how can I be a part of that? And I just had a moment where I was like, I don't know, how do we feel about the idea of baking club? Like, I'm not in an office or a kitchen every day baking, and I miss that sense of community. And so I kind of just put it out there one day. And I was like, where did all these people come from? What is this engagement about? And I pretty much overnight was like, okay, it's on. Baking Club, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what I love about it is, as much as it is for every single person out there that might ever want to tune in, is for me too. Like, it is my, like, how do I deal with the heft of furloughs and the scary things that make me crawl into a corner and cry? I go like, it's 1:45. I better get my act together. Baking Club is happening. And it forces me to say, we're not going to hold it heavy today, Christina. Like, there's one way through it. There's one way into it, and it's going to be through it. And it's just a fun way to be like, oh, you don't have flour, guy? Let me tell you about the 10 different things you can use instead of flour.
What can you use? Yeah. I mean, I have some flour, but I'm running out. So like, what do I?
Yeah, it's like, oh, do you have oats? You can grind them down into a flour. Do you have pretzels? You can pulverize them into a flour. There's all sorts of alternative flours, but also maybe one day we'll make meringues, because people are scared about the idea of whipping egg whites and sugar and a pinch of salt. And I'll just help shepherd you through it. And I'm going to do it in a way that's very different than the way that I do it on the clock at Milk Bar. I'll do it at home in whatever it is that I rolled out of bed and put on. And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be just as imperfect as you are about it. And we're going to have a really good time with it. And you're going to get the looseness and the casual nature with which I show up in my home kitchen. Yeah. Holding a camera, trying to show you how to make a dry caramel, which is so simple. And we'll just do it together. And then we just put them online, and it's been really fun to see people pick it up and to create their own communities around it. And for me, it's also I want to know, I'm fueled by what is in everyone else's brilliant, imaginative minds. Like, the way I see a big graham cracker, which is what we made yesterday, is different than the way somebody else might see it. And so the ingredient swap part of it is also really, really, really fun, because it fuels my creativity, and it makes me go we're gonna get through this. And when we get through it, I have 50 great ideas about what need to go on the menu at Milk Bar. So it's self-fulfilling, as selfless as it is.
It's amazing, like just how resourceful we can be. Like my kids wanted a dessert last night, and I was like, I don't know, but I had some bananas like that were rotting, so I froze them. I cut them up and froze them, and I took them out, and they wanted chocolate sauce on it, so I took some cocoa powder and butter and sugar, and and it was great, and they loved it. Some hot
Brilliant
chocolate
genius.
sauce on frozen bananas, and like my mom used to make that for me when I was a little kid. It was great.
There are so many silver linings to the now. I find this like retreat to these moments that you hear from people that are like, I don't know when I would have ever had the opportunity to be with my kids and to be with them at a moment where they're like, I want dessert, and to have the energy or the lack of escape to be like,
No
okay,
energy.
we're going to make dessert. And then all of a sudden what you get out of it is, I imagine this beautiful nostalgic moment of like, oh my gosh, when would I have ever had the space in my head to think about this thing that my mom would do for me?
Yeah.
And
there's a question.
the fiber of your home, you know what I mean? I don't know, that stuff.
No, totally. There's a question from Jillian Gerard. She asks, tell us about some cool new cookie or dessert combos that you've come up with that, as you mentioned, you might bring into Milk Bar one day, like that you've been experimenting with at home.
I have a really good one that is coming on Friday, tomorrow.
Ooh, yeah.
I can't tell you what it is because my team will kill me. I also like Baking Club. I post the ingredients on the gram the night before. And what's fun is like, I don't know, when you have flour, butter, sugar, and salt, you can make 100,000 different things. Yeah. So what are we going to make tomorrow? And it's fun to watch people guess. So I can't tell you what it is. Otherwise, my team would be very upset.
I'll kill you. All right. So it's going to come tomorrow.
Flavor combinations. Oh, I mean, you know me, like my taste buds were developed in the aisles of the grocery store. One, the access that we've always had, the food access that we've all always shared, more or less. And so it is their flavor profiles that revolve around things like what happens when you take popcorn and grind it down into a flour. What happens when, right? So they're fun things like that. And then they're like happy mistakes that happen in the kitchen, you know, like when you burn white chocolate a little bit, it gets into the sweet brown buttery state. Ooh, that's interesting.
Wow.
It's there. Brown butter is delicious every day, but it also tastes a little like fall. But you can make it edible if you take white chocolate and you just melt it down on a pan over high heat or high medium heat and just mix it around. You think you're melting it, but all of a sudden you start to brown the solids, and then you go like, this is actually quite interesting. I've been digging, I, like you, have had a lot of bananas, so I've been digging the like PB chocolate banana, like we're called like PB&B, peanut butter and banana.
Wow. Yeah.
And that I would just say, like, is there honey in it? Is there chocolate in it? That's kind of like a sticky thing that when we get through this, I think that vibe is a really fun play. But I think like you, a lot of those retreats to the simple flavor combination, the nostalgic moment. So we'll be tapping into a lot more of that.
I mean, butter and brown sugar and flour, and a bit of salt. That's a blondie, basically, right? So and I've been making those. This is a question from Amy Levy. A lot of food questions, as you can imagine, Christina. Her son's, she says, my son Zach's favorite cookie is the compost cookie. Oh, he's wondering which is yours. Which cookie is your favorite?
I mean, it totally depends on the time of day and my mood. The cornflake chocolate chip marshmallow, warm out of the oven, really any time of day, I will like turn my head against all the other cookies. Corn cookie, but in cookie dough form. Or if I'm making a grilled cheese sandwich with it, you can use it in place of bread, which is great. Yeah. Compost cookie for me is like always with a warm cup of coffee because it's sort of salty and sweet, and the notes from the ground coffee always land. And then the confetti cookie is like when I just need like brightness. If it's not anywhere close to 2 p.m. or too far gone from 2 p.m., there's something about a confetti cookie that kind of just like brings out the childlike wonder in me, because it's kind of like if you made birthday cake into a cookie.
And it's bright and joyful. All right, one more question from our audience before we wrap up. This is a question from Kim Smith, and I love this question. She writes, "I'm resisting baking sweet treats since I live alone and I don't want to eat the whole batch. Can you recommend one treat that I might try making during this time? She writes to honor your business. Also, or no, actually, she writes, can you recommend one treat that I might try during this time to honor your business and treat myself? So I think she's asking if she could order one thing, what would it be?
Oh. I think that the best move, Kim, is we have this pack online that is you get one slice of Milk Bar pie, a pack of truffles, and a tin of assorted cookies. So you get a little tour of Milk Bar.
She went for one.
Well, I know, but we don't sell like a single slice of. So like, my perspective is that if you're gonna get a tin of cookies, which is probably the smallest thing you can get online, adding in the slice of pie and the truffle gives you all of it. I will say, Kim, that they all freeze really well.
Yeah.
And in the spirit of it all, like the beauty for me of Baking Club, because I live with you and like the second something comes out of the oven, it's like, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous proposition for me. Yeah. I'm not gonna eat dinner. I'm just gonna eat all the dessert.
Yeah.
Is to, like, while things are baking, I line up little plastic baggies or plates so that they have a place to go.
Yeah.
And then I just drop them off. Like I leave them in my own mailbox for my FedEx guy, or I drop them in a neighbor's mailbox or on a neighbor's doorstep if you live in an apartment building.
Yeah.
Drop them off at like a school that's packing lunches for kids that that depend on school lunch and so on and so forth. Like there's a few ways for you to get a nibble as well, while also giving to others. And I'm just sort of addicted, as you can tell, to that spirit of sharing. So there's a lot of things you can do, Kim, even if you decide to go for it. Or we also on Baking Club, we do one savory baking club a week. So if you're worried about like the sugar, there's always a savory option.
And just Christina, on that idea, if people want to, like, we've been hearing from medical workers who like come across Milk Bar cookies, like, in like the break room or something. If people want to help out or like send cookies to people on front lines, is there an easy way to do that?
If you go, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can either ship them directly through our website, milkbarstore.com. We have had a few larger benefactors that have just contacted us again through the website that are saying like, I want cookies either to go to these specific healthcare professionals or sites, or to say, I want to give this much money every day, and you choose the hospitals, and we have connections with hospitals all across the country. And then pretty soon we'll launch a program online as well that like Kim can send herself a tin of cookies and can send cookies to either from a drop down of hospitals or to a place of her choice.
Wow.
and include a handwritten note, which for me is like the kicker on top of it. It's like the equivalent of the 7 p.m. New York City cheer of like, you can hear people's voices and you can see the humanity in the note. So there's different options.
Christina, before
will show up.
Before I let you go, in 5 years, like when we talk about this time period, what do you hope will come out of this for you, for your business, that will have built resilience into what you're doing?
I think for me, my look back is that I don't want to waste it. Like my father-in-law, Frank Adera, is like saying that he raised my partner on, and that sits with me, is adversity is a terrible thing to waste. And I don't want to miss what these really meaningful takeaways are. And I don't necessarily mean in like developing the business, though there's certainly plenty there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to waste the hardship that's happening right now. Like this is what we build on. This is what grit is. This is what perseverance looks like. It's what humanity looks like. When have we ever had the time to say like, I'm gonna write people handwritten notes and put them in the mail? I haven't done that in a long time, and I did a whole swath of them the other day.
Yeah.
When are you gonna have a moment with your kids to be like, I'm gonna make you something with almost rotten bananas that my mom used to make me? And then for me as a person, it's like I am realizing that my like alone morning time is an important part of what I do. I was traveling around like a crazy person and doing all these things because I thought that is what being being someone committed to their business, being someone that was driven and successful and hardworking looked like. And I'm realizing that I left so much on the table with that mentality, and I have so much more in me now because of the way in which I bodyguard certain parts of my being and my health and my life. And for me, it's like I will not go back. I cannot go back. I will not go back. There's no U-turn. There's no U-turns allowed. And so to make the most of right now.
I love it. Christina, stand by. I love it so much. So many people watching. Piyush Srivastava in Delhi in India, Cynthia Daniel Wolf in Portland, Colette Wu in Taiwan, Aaron Forrest Hatch in Salt Lake City. We've got Maureen Shea in Sebastopol in the Bay Area. Stephanie Chai in San Francisco watching. Hope Nastri from the Walls Vineyard in Walla Walla, Washington. Umar Ahmed in Bloomington, Minnesota. Augusta Zoni Cherney in San Diego. So many more. Thank you so much for watching. Just a couple of quick reminders. We're going to be back today right here online, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific with Jose Andres. We're going to have a happy hour with him and talk about some of the incredible things he's doing with his organization, World Central Kitchen. So please join us here, 6 p.m. Eastern today, same place, live conversation. Bring your questions. Tomorrow, I'll be talking with Samin Nosrat, chef and author of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Such an incredible cookbook. So excited. If you missed yesterday's conversation or any of the conversations that we've had so far, Daniel Hume was on, Alice Waters, Kyle Connaughton, any of these live conversations we've had, Simon Sinek and others, you can see all of them by going to facebook.com/howibuiltthis. All the videos are there. And most of them should be and will be soon on the NPR YouTube channel. So you can watch all these conversations whenever you want. Tomorrow on the podcast feed, if you are a subscriber to How I Built This, Simon Sinek's conversation from last week will be posted there in audio form, so you can listen to that. Next Monday, we've got a brand new episode. We're doing brand new episodes of the How I Built This podcast every week. The story of Fitbit with James Park. It's an incredible story. I talked to James just a couple days ago, and so look out for that. Christina, thank you so much for being part of this, for joining us, for your daily bake club stuff that you're doing. It's so awesome. It brings me joy, and I think it brings a lot of people who watch it a lot of joy. Thanks for being here. It's so great to see you. I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Bye, guy.